Hi. So the FAQ that follows now is, where should we get our calcium from if not from dairy? Do we need dairy for our health? The straight answer to this question is that we do not need dairy at any stage of life for our personal health. Humans are the only species that drink the milk of another species. No other species does that or needs that. The irony is that a lion, a gorilla, a fish, or even an insect, all of them are capable of identifying the food that they are designed to eat by nature, except humans. We need science, analysis, research, data to understand what we should be eating and the fact that we are humans, not a baby cow. Fortunately, there are hundreds of medical literature available online that have shown that dairy is not just unnecessary for human health, but it can be harmful for us, as it has been seen to contribute significantly to causing diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases, Alzheimer's, and certain cancers of the breast, prostate, and cervical. Additionally, it should be noted that avoiding dairy has led to the prevention as well as reversal of many of these chronic medical conditions. According to Dr. Neil Barnard from PCRM, cheese and other high-fat dairy products are linked to an increased risk of breast cancer. The evidence against dairy is so strong that PCRM filed a petition urging the American Food and Drug Administration to require warning labels on them as being potential carcinogens. Now, talking about the popular myth that we need dairy for strong bones and teeth. Have you ever wondered where do cows get their calcium from? Or other mammals who have nothing to do with the milk of another species to get theirs from? Why should we need to source our calcium from the mammary secretions of an animal? Before I answer that, studies have consistently failed to show that a high intake of calcium in a diet helps prevent any fractures. Because if it were true, then you should expect that in places where people consume lots of dairy to have less fractures. However, the results are completely the opposite. Those regions with excessive dairy consumption actually see more cases of osteoporosis and hip fractures. Healthy bones are a culmination of several factors like sufficient vitamin D and K, minerals like calcium and magnesium, which nobody talks about, regular exercises, as well as your general lifestyle habits. Narrowing down dairy as the only source of great bone health is not enough, because in today's world, cow's milk is a toxic cocktail of pus, synthetic hormones, antibiotics, pesticides, bacteria, and urea. Instead, eating a varied plant-based diet rich in greens, beans, and seeds, getting enough sunlight or taking a vitamin D supplement, and an active lifestyle is what we need for healthy bones and teeth. Calcium is a mineral that is found in soils and is absorbed by plants through their roots. Cows get their calcium from eating dark green leafy plants. So then why don't we eat plants for calcium when there is enough calcium available in greens, beans, and seeds like in tofu, edamame, sesame seeds, kale, tempeh, and broccoli, which are great sources of calcium, minus the pus, the blood, the hormones, the antibiotics, and of course, they do not come at the cost of separating a newborn from their lactating mothers. From what I have read and found out, more than any other disease, whether you consume dairy or not seems to be the deciding factor on whether you will get diabetes and high blood pressure or not. Through many studies that have compared people in different dietary spectrums and analyzed their chances of getting diabetes and high blood pressure, they concluded that the higher animal products you eat, whether they are meat, dairy, eggs, or fish, the higher risk you put yourself at to these diseases. Instead of me talking about it, watch this mind-boggling video of Dr. Greger from nutritionfacts.org, where he talks about the evidence-based findings that show the direct link between dairy and diabetes as well as cardiovascular diseases. Watch it.
Decades ago, we started to get the first inklings that a plant-based diet may be protective against diabetes. Studies going back a half-century found that those eating meat 1 or more days a week had significantly higher rates of diabetes, and the more frequently meat was eaten, the more frequent the disease. And this is after controlling for weight. Even at the same weight, those eating plant-based had but a fraction of the diabetes rates. And if anything, vegetarians should have had more diabetes just because they appear to live so much longer, so have more time to develop these kinds of chronic diseases. But no, apparently lower rates of death and disease. Fast forward 50 years to the Adventist II study, looking at 89,000 people, and we see a stepwise drop in the rates of diabetes as one eats more and more plant-based, down to a 78% lower prevalence among those eating strictly plant-based. Protection building incrementally as one moved from eating meat to eating less meat, to just fish, to no meat, and then to no eggs or dairy either. We see the same thing with another leading killer, high blood pressure. The greater the proportion of plant foods, the lower the rates of hypertension. And the same with excess body fat. The only dietary group not on average overweight were those eating diets composed exclusively of plant foods. But again, the same incremental drop with fewer and fewer animal products. This suggests it's not black and white, not all or nothing. Any steps we can make towards eating healthier may accrue significant benefits. Followed over time, vegetarian diets were associated with substantially lower incidence of diabetes, fewer new cases, indicating the potential of these diets to stem the current diabetes epidemic. What about eating a really healthy diet with just little meat, or is it better to eat none at all? Well, we have new insight this year from Taiwan. Asian diets in general tend to be lower in meat, higher in plant foods compared to Western diets. But whether a diet completely avoiding meat and fish would further extend the protective benefit of a plant-based diet wasn't known until now. Traditionally, Asian populations have had low rates of diabetes, but a diabetes epidemic has since emerged and appears to coincide with increased meat, animal protein, and animal fat consumption. But the westernization of Asian diets also brought along a lot of fast food and junk. So these researchers at the National University didn't want to just compare eating vegetarian to typical meat eaters, but compared Buddhist vegetarians to Buddhist non-vegetarians eating traditional Asian diets. Even the omnivores were eating a predominantly plant-based diet, consuming little meat and fish, with the women eating the equivalent of about a single serving a week, and men eating a serving every few days. That's just 8% of the meat intake in the U.S., 3% for the women. The question is it better to eat 3% or 0%? Again, both groups were eating healthy, zero soda consumption, for example, in any group. Despite the similarities in their diet, and after controlling for weight and family history and exercise and smoking, the men eating vegetarian had just half the rates of diabetes, and the vegetarian women just a quarter the rates. So even in a population consuming a really plant-based diet with little meat and fish, true vegetarians who completely avoided animal flesh while eating more healthy plant foods had lower odds for prediabetes and diabetes after accounting for other risk factors. They wanted to break it up into vegan versus ovo-lacto, like in the Adventist II study, but there were no cases at all of diabetes found within the vegan group.